A dragon. A scaly, fire-breathing hoarder who sits on a pile of gold and wait for the heroes to slay him and loot everything he has. His gold spent in various taverns, and in various tavern women, his bones made into back scratchers and surfboard-sized swords, his teeth turned into nails for an epic ship, and his skin becomes the tent of a chieftain or khan. It doesn't sound like a good deal to me. And given that dragons are depicted as fairly smart and cunning, I think that the dragon would also realize that the gigantic heap of gold he calls his bed attracts unwanted attention. So why would realistic dragons be actually hoarding gold? And while in my first video about this topic I speculated that a gigantic fire-breathing lizard would not only be a great security asset for any bank, but could also act as a fire-breathing treasurer who would ensure that the crown, senate, or the citizens wouldn't just spend every dime they could and then leave a massive amount of debt on top to their children and grandchildren while they themselves die peaceful in their sleep. Which would then leave the dragon, who's still alive and will live for yet further centuries, with a lot of problems. Angry, arms-wielding problems. And therefore in this scenario we will discuss basically the opposite of the dragon as an esteemed treasurer or banker. The dragon as the head of a future state, or as an independent political actor, and as a major power in his area, so to speak. For today, it's all about how a dragon would actually create his dragon kingdom. So let's say a dragon is tired of being hunted down by adventurers, by nearby kingdoms, or indeed other dragons, giants, and everything else that could potentially bring him low. So what's the best way to avoid attacks and attackers more powerful than himself? Well, simply becoming more powerful than the attackers. And the first act in this quest for power would be the dragon committing a certain act with yet another dragon and found a dragon nest, a hoard, somewhere far away from humans and other potential threats, so that he can build his power base more or less in peace. He could perhaps settle in a mountain cave or near a calm volcano with his or her partner and sire kids. And during this process of hoarding food in perhaps the frozen mountain wastes, so that the young dragons would have ample food once they hatch, the dragon pair could also hoard not only slain goats, deers, snakes, and large fish, shark, or even small whales, but also treasures and gold. For example, gold ore could be broken down by the dragon themselves, thus creating a basis for their monetary power. Also, any gemstones could likely be seen by the sharp dragon eyes, and also carefully added to the dragon's treasure heap. But maybe this is the part where the dragons would first enlist human or elven or orcish helpers to collect these small gemstones from, let's say, a riverbed or something like this. The dragon would found a settlement, protected from wild beasts, while simultaneously providing food, via their protection effort, from the aforementioned beasts, and thus create a village of underlings that will add to the dragon's fortune in exchange for part of the production and protection. A dragon could, for example, with his keen eyes, also spot in which parts of the riverbed or mountain stream the diamonds and gemstones are concentrated, land near the river, and just bite down on the section of the riverbed, carry the rocks, the sand, and the valuable stones with him to the village, where the workers will then sort out everything shiny from the pile of rock and dirt that the dragon carried in his mouth. And so the dragon's treasure would continue to grow, and since one of the dragons would need to stay behind to raise the kids anyway, the gigantic, flying, fire-breathing lizard with teeth the size of swords and claws like spears would also act as a very credible deterrent for any would-be thief. And so, over the decades, the treasure heap would grow and grow. And let's say after 50 to 60 years, the dragons would not only have a small town of let's say 1 to 2,000 people in the valley of their respective mountains, but also another asset under their very wings, namely their children. Being in a safe place far away from civilization and able to raise their youngs, the dragons might have a couple of kids by now, of which the oldest would now be able to fly. Perhaps the size of a large horse or ox, these dragons would learn from their parents not only dragon things like breathing fire or flying, but also how to manage their subjects. And at this point, the dragon would basically already have his own little kingdom. But the next step in the dragon's plan would then to entice more people to settle within his realm. And in that his offspring could help. Maybe one of the young dragons carries someone who is good at talking and speaking and convincing, a shop owner or trader perhaps, to the next village outside of his small realm, and let the man talk about how great and safe the life in the little dragon kingdom is, how friendly the fire-breathing gigantic lizards are, and they need help in finding all of the precious gemstones and gold in their realm, for a share of the treasure of course. Or perhaps farmhands and laborers are needed, and a smart dragon or trader would know that in winter, the day laborers, construction workers, and any other temporary worker would not have much money or food, so being offered land of their very own, land without any taxes or tributes required, for a dragon could simply hunt on its own, prey on wolves and other carnivorous beasts that would threaten the towns and villages' cattle and goat herds, or simply pay for the cows he wants to eat. And to the impoverished, this would sound like heaven. So very soon, an exodus of people would leave for the newly established dragon kingdom, and at that point, the dragon would become a problem for the state he's in, because he's basically stealing all of the labor from nearby lords and realms. Now, if he's knowledgeable about the political situation around him, he would have basically made his nest right on the border of two nations, because then chances are that the two would rather have it that the other nation is dealing with the dragon, and that none of their own men are devoured or fried by the beasts. But let's say he's in the middle of a kingdom. He has himself, his wife, and let's say 5 dragonlings under his wings, alongside with a couple of thousand citizens. Not enough by any means to withstand the kingdom he resides in, with its thousands of adventurers, and many tens of thousands of regular soldiers, not to mention wizards and beasts of their very own, griffins for example. So what would the dragon then do? Well, he could simply buy loyalty and the support of noble houses and influential powerful institutions. For example, if the king's son hates his father and wants to speed up the succession, why not hasten the inevitable by hiring a couple dozen powerful wizards, some 100 adventurers, and an army 20,000 strong to support his claim to the throne? With enough gold, he could create chaos within the kingdom without even having to declare war or fight an official one. So in this scenario, the dragon's treasure would be basically an insurance that he will come out on top in the coming war. And ideally, before the kingdom can even strike out against him, his gold would have destabilized the kingdom enough that it is an evolved secession or succession, or perhaps a neighbor could be convinced to keep the kingdom busy by taking a piece of it for themselves. And the more instability, war, and displacement takes place, the more the dragon's own little realm with its mighty overlord would seem like a viable alternative. I mean, peasants were originally not paid, but they simply worked the land of their lords in exchange for protection. And who better to protect them from the ravages of war than a couple of dragons? And thus eventually Minor and Major Lord would come to join the dragon realm as well, where the kingdom is busy with itself until it is no more. Or the dragon realm is at least acknowledged as an actual thing by the declining human nation. And so a dragon kingdom with a sizable land area and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subjects could come to be, all thanks to the treasure heap of the dragon, the mercenary and loyalty this treasure can buy. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching. Do you have to add anything to the video? Then let me know it down in the comment section. And while you type, I say have